Hey, everybody, what's up? It's Jay over at The Hook Rocks. Hope you're ready to listen to the great interview I did earlier this week with Michael Sweet from the band Stryper. On the heels of their new release this past Friday, September 4th, or last Friday, September 4th, Even the Devil Believes. Great album. The quintessential Stryper sound is back again. Had a great conversation with Michael. Been a fan of Stryper for decades. My brother brought home the album Soldiers Under Command. It was followed by their big To Hell with the Devil release. And of course, many decades, many years of albums and tours. And the quintessential Stryper sound is back. I got to tell you, this album is great. It's a great listen. Albums are starting to trickle out now more as we get towards the end of the year into the beginning of 2021. I mean, it's going to be a little under 4 months until New Year comes knocking in, comes rocking in. 2021, I hope, is a better year than this past year. We soon shall see, right? Hopefully. I mean, we can only go up from here, I guess, right? I mean, we can't get any lower than what we are currently in. I mean, I guess we could, but what is lower? And I don't know if any one of us wants to find out. But Michael talks about a lot of things, talks about the new album, talks about the recording process, asked him some questions on the writing of the album, and you'll get to check out his answers here soon. He also spoke about the current political climate in this country, and I found his answers to be really interesting. Definitely some insight into where and how he thinks, why things are happening, and where do we go from here? And the toxic environment we are in, whether it's just partisanship, with your friends and family, people losing friends, people getting divorces because of different views. It's a mess out there. It really is. When you think about how if your opinion does not align with somebody else's, and maybe, you've done the same thing. I think we're all guilty of it. I think we're all guilty of not listening at certain points of our lives and certain points during this year where we're listening so we can talk instead of listening to learn. There's a huge difference. And hopefully you understand that. But when talking with Michael, he shared his views on a lot of things. And him and I are in agreement on the whole stay in your lane viewpoint. Whether you like that person's point of view, they are members of society just like you and me. And it's on us, the individual, to decide whether we want to agree with that person, whether we want to disagree with that person, whether they're an athlete, a musician, an actor. They can say whatever they want. Stop being part of this boycott society because someone voices their opinion. I find that just so obnoxious that you're so dug into your opinion. You don't want to hear someone else's in the event that you might learn something. So you'd rather just boycott. I've mentioned on this show before, I disagree with everything Ted Nugent says, but I still love his music. I'll still listen to it. Unless someone is causing physical harm or oppression to somebody. Now, if they support someone who you think does that, I mean, where does it end? People are entitled to have their own beliefs and their own opinions without somebody boycotting their stuff. I mean, I see posts on my Twitter feed all day long, whether it's, the NBA having a moment for Black Lives Matter, or what the NBA is doing, or the NHL, or Major League Baseball. I find it just mind-boggling that you're going to turn off a sport that you've enjoyed for how many years you've enjoyed it just because you don't like what they're doing. Well, you don't have to like everything. You're not entitled to like everything an organization, a group, a person says or does. Okay? Stop with the entitled mentality. Just move on. Just say, yeah, I disagree with that, but I'm still going to watch. You know? I mean, how does that have an effect on you? It's not directly affecting you. You know, the NHL having their moment, the NBA, you know, doing what they do, football players kneeling for the anthem. How does that have an effect on you directly? It doesn't. Your life will still be the same tomorrow morning when you get up and the same when you go to sleep. It's not going to change. Stop thinking that people can't express themselves outside of your point of view. Stop with the entitled bullshit. Anyway, let's get to the interview. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll like it. Michael was great. Look forward to having him on again. But let's learn to listen, people, instead of just listening so we can hear ourselves talk and express ourselves and point our finger and get our opinions made loud and clear. Let's start coming together. That's what we need to do. And when we do it, we'll be able to get rid of this pandemic a lot quicker than how we currently are. Y'all have a good weekend. Enjoy the episode. Rock on. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jay Scott. This is The Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're staying healthy, staying safe. And fall is upon us here in the next week or so. So the change of season is here, even though it's hard to gauge time this year because everything kind of runs together because we've been locked up, cooped up, and doing the same old thing on most days. So we're here for you. We're here to provide rock talk, music talk, and our next guest is Michael Sweet from the band Stryper. What's going on, Michael? How are you?
I'm well. Just we're riding the excitement of the new album, man. We're really pumped. A lot of people seem to really dig what they're hearing, and the video, the views are up, and everyone's buzzing about it. So it's really cool.
The new album is Even the Devil Believes. It was released last Friday. It's the first album with bass player Perry Richardson. Talk about the process. How did this album come about versus the last album, Goddamn Evil? Where was the band direction in this?
Well, I mean, of course, we have a new bass player, and he's really changed the dynamic of the band and within the band. He's just a joy to be around, great player, great singer, and we love having him. So, it's kind of recharged us, so to speak. Not that we necessarily needed recharging, but, you start to feel as though you're going through the motions sometimes, and you need to have something give you that energy back. And Perry's brought a lot of that back into the band. And it's our first album with him. And, we're really excited for people to hear what we sound like with Perry. And that was in question. People were wondering, like, is it going to be good? Is it going to be off? Is it going to sound weird? I think quite the contrary. It's our best album. I think it's our most powerful album, most solid album. And so far, I'm not the only one saying that. I see lots and lots and lots of comments from people that agree with me on that. So it's really cool to see. We're thrilled. Couldn't be happier.
This is a really good album. I mean, I checked it out over the weekend after it came out, listened to it several different times, Really enjoyed it. Brought me back to when Stryper first came out when I was younger, back in the mid-'80s. Has that same type of energy, that same type of vibe. My question to you, when putting this album together during these times that we're in, how was that process? Was it more challenging? Was it more difficult to have a perspective on what's going on?
Believe it or not, it wasn't, because I started writing the album mid-December because I wanted to have it written before Christmas, and I did. I wrote a song a day, so in 11 days I had the entire album, or 12 days, and then I took the holidays off. I took, I think I finished up on like the 22nd or 23rd, and I took that time all the way through to the 1st off, and then the guys flew out here. I think they got in to Logan on the 2nd or the 3rd of January, and they came into the house and we learned the songs. And then we went in and started recording in mid-January. We had all the basics tracked by early February. And that's when we started hearing a lot about the virus. So it didn't affect how we started the album out and how we recorded the basic tracks. What did get hugely and largely affected by the pandemic was the touring for the year. We were supposed to go out and tour and do a bunch of Stryper shows and a solo tour with Tony Harnell, Michael Sweet. That all had to get canceled and or postponed. So the making of the music was just normal. I mean, the guys went home, we went to Mexico, we played, I came home and I started singing. And that's when the pandemic was full-blown quarantine, lockdown, and I was just home singing like I always do. I'm in lockdown mode anyway when I'm singing. So it was nothing new for me.
You know, when you were putting this record together, you mentioned it was, during the holidays last year, you started writing it, and then you guys recorded it. And then right before when the pandemic started, you started hearing these things as the album was completed. When you record something in the time frame that you do, and then, we have this, gosh, what do you even call it? This thing that's never happened before, this unprecedented time, and you already have the music written and recorded for this album that you released now. You're supposed to do some touring. How does this time inspire you? Is there more music that you say, well, this is connecting with me right now? These are the events that are happening, because you've already got this one album in the bank waiting for it to be released, and then all these things in the world. And you guys write a lot of stuff, or you write a lot of stuff about what's happening around you. You've always done that,
That's what's interesting. It makes it even more unique and very interesting is these lyrics were written pre-pandemic, but they apply to our times so perfectly.
It does. It really does. Yeah.
I know. But they were written in December. So, it's almost like I feel almost as if God was kind of, subconsciously speaking to me or something. I don't know, man. It's weird how it worked out like that, because it's as if the lyrics were written during the pandemic, but they weren't.
You mentioned, the writing, like I just said, in December, and then, the whole process of putting this album together with, Perry coming on. How did it differ? How did the process differ than previous albums?
I'll tell you, the only thing that was different in the process, two things. We had Perry, which was awesome, because this is our first album recording with Perry, so the dynamic was different in a very cool way. And we mixed remotely. So I got a high-definition feed on my computer, and I listened with studio headphones, and then I had a camera set up, and I was able to see the engineer, Danny Bernini, and he could see me, and we mixed that way for a week. I sat in a chair We'd mix a song, and then he'd send me it, and I'd burn a CD and go listen in the car, and come back and, hey, let's bring the guitar solo up a little bit, and add a little more delay. Let's do this, do that, do this, that, and that's how we mixed the whole album. I've never mixed an album like that before in my life, but I tell you, it was great. Actually, it worked, and we may even mix every album like that in the future, because there's something to be said for just sitting with headphones, not being in the studio, and then being able to really live with the song. When we're in the studio, it feels a little bit more rushed, and there's not enough time to live with the song. Doing it this way, there's more time to live with the song, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, in terms, you mentioned being recharged by Perry's presence, and was there ever a point where, obviously you toured with him the last tour you guys did. He was on the, part of the band prior to you guys recording. So there was some comfort level with each other. But in terms of recording, was there a sense of nervousness, or was it confident that this was going to be, the best Stryper album that you guys have released?
Yeah, I was very confident of that. I had no, concerns regarding whether it was going to be our best or not. I really didn't. Now, Perry, I think, was a little more concerned and nervous than the rest of us, because it was his first album with us. So I think he was maybe thinking more about, like, am I going to deliver? Oh my gosh, how's this going to go? Just being the first time. But he nailed it. I mean, as we knew he would. I mean, he came in and just killed it. All the parts, all the vocals, everything. It was great. So there was no reason to be concerned. And, he proved to everybody that he's the man for the job. He's the right player.
The first two singles, Do Unto Others and Make Love Great Again. Make Love Great Again has gotten a little bit of pushback from, the interpretation of what the name stands for and what the name means. What do you feel about that pushback? Is it just a misunderstanding? Is it just people reading the title, kind of like how people read the headline in news and they don't actually read what the article is? How do you feel about that?
It's a misunderstanding. And even if it was implied or supposed to mean, hey, we support President Donald Trump and this is a song for him, that's our business. And if we want to do that, we'll do it. It's not up to anyone else to make that decision. That's our decision. But it wasn't based on that. It was just a song title that was thrown out there by Perry, and Make Rock Great Again is what he threw out. And I thought that was a little cliche. Robert came up with Make God Great Again. And I said, well, you don't have to make God great again. He's always great. And I threw love in the mix, and that's what we went with. I think love can always be made better. We need to put love first in our society, in our world. And it just so happens that Donald Trump's slogan is Make America Great Again. So people are instantly, they jump on the bandwagon that it's a song, a pro-Trump song, or even some have said it's an anti-Trump song because of the building walls line. But that line is referring to building emotional walls, not physical walls.
We see that in our society, and I can't think of a better person to speak to about this in terms of what's going on right now, in terms of our country, in terms of the division, in terms of me versus them. It seems like it keeps growing and festering almost every day, and I don't know if it's partially because of the way things are portrayed in the media. I think that does have a little bit to do with it, but just even our own selves, how we've, like you said, built walls around ourselves. We don't want to hear different opinions. We don't want to hear what other one has to say, and we judge people based on their point of view, which doesn't necessarily define what that person is about.
Exactly, because that's the mentality, not with all people, but with many people. It's this mentality of once someone from the other side starts to give an explanation, I don't want to hear it. La 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 la. And that's literally the mentality, and that's the way these people react. Like, no, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't care. You're not going to change my views. You're not going to change my mind, even if there are facts presented before them. And I'm talking about both sides. I'm not talking about just one side in particular, both sides. And that's really sad. We need to somehow overcome our hate, because a lot of times we're fighting for hate. We're fighting for love and against hate. And in the same process, we're hating. We're doing it with the hateful spirit. So that's complete, utter hypocrisy. And we need to take a look at ourselves, look in the mirror, look long and hard, and get that right first. And chances are you're never going to get that right. So you're going to be just worrying about yourself for the rest of your life. Deal with that first before you try to deal with other people. And it's really a bummer to see. And I see it all the time on the news. I can't watch CNN. I can't watch Fox because it's just the same old rubbish over and over again. CNN, Donald Trump will speak, and CNN will talk about all the negatives about what he just said and won't discuss one positive, and there were many. And Fox will watch Biden and, jump on the negatives and won't discuss the positives. And it's mind-boggling. That's just the way it is. So it's no wonder we're divided as a country, as a nation.
When you look at the pandemic, and the biggest thing that everybody has to do is pull together and be together, because that's the only way we're going to overcome this. And everyone's like, well, why do we keep having these cases and these tests and these deaths and everything? And yeah, you can fault and blame certain regulation or rules that were not put in place, and you can always point to that. But the bottom line is that usually during the history of our country, we've always pulled together during a moment of crisis. And this is really the first time that we really haven't. And
True.
And it's just, and if you want to look at a reason why we're still dealing with this, it's that's the biggest reason.
I agree with you. And sadly, I think it's our generation. You look back on generations of the past, and it was a different spirit in this country, different mentality. It was more, as you said, about coming together and getting through the tough times, whether it was war or the Great Depression or whatever it was. People would come together, and at least that's what the history books say. I wasn't there, I didn't live it, but I read it, and now to turn on the news every day and you just see chaos, and one group of people going out and lighting buildings on fire, and other groups of people going out with guns to try to stop them, and it's insane. Police not being able to do their job, and mayors and governors not allowing the police to do their job, and it's just you're sitting here thinking, what is happening? This is chaos, and it is. I think we can turn around, but it's going to take a lot.
I point to just recent history, 9/11, and we had a horrible attack on our country, and our president, George W. Bush, was able to bring everybody together, albeit not forever, but for the moment in time that we needed to come together. He did that, and we did that as people, and it was such a pleasant time to have after a tragedy. What that felt like, and I think that's what we're missing here, in that feeling of just togetherness, and say, hey, we're going to get rid of this together. We're all hands on deck, and let's get rid of this pandemic.
I agree. Now, see, if you say that, a lot of people listening and reading are going to instantly, the minute you mention George Bush's name, they're going to say, oh my gosh, they can't see the good because there's so much hate for the man. You know what I mean? Oh, he was the worst president. I mean, I meet these people all the time. I talk to them, and you're just thinking, wow, how sad. You hate someone so much that you can't see the good that they do. And that's the thing about President Donald Trump. I mean, his delivery, the way he delivers, the way he says things is frustrating and aggravating, and I can see how and why it would anger people. He says things and tweets things that make me go, oh my God, no, but yet he's doing a lot of good things for this country. And if I say that and it goes live and people read it, I can see the comments right now. Me, what a douchebag, and what a moron, and he doesn't know what he's talking about, and how can he say that, and that's ludicrous, and that's ridiculous, and worst president ever, blah blah blah. It's like, well, look at the facts. Go online. We can all go online and look at the facts on paper the things that have been done to try to make this country better. But what overshadows those things is his personality. So people can't see past the hate they have for him as a person to see the good that he's done. And that applies to any president. Forget Republican, forget Democrat. I'm not talking about parties here. I'm talking about any president sitting in the White House. That's what they have to go through. And because we judge people based on, their look or the way they speak or the way they hold themselves, or, instead of looking at what did they really do? Did they do good things or did they do bad things for this country? And, it's just the way it's always been, and probably the way it's always going to be.
Do you think, though, that, when we talk about the language that our president uses, words do matter to a lot of people. Do you think that when he does speak and when he does say things, it fans the flames of social discourse, of, we have the riots going on right now in certain cities. We have protests every night in places all over the country. Do you think that is necessary? Do you think that, No,
I don't. I mean, I think I agree. Yes, the way he speaks and some of the things he says, don't help matters. And that's why I think it's odd that any president has a Twitter account. To me, that just looks, it instantly it makes the president look unpresidential. You have a Twitter and an Instagram account that you're actually tweeting on. And those damn North Koreans, we're going to, it's like, it's just weird to me. Weird. It's not the way it should be. And then especially for our president, Donald Trump, I mean, his delivery method is not good. He just kind of shoots from the hip and says things that he may even regret. I don't know. He probably doesn't. But I think that there are a lot of things that are said by our president that fan the flames. Absolutely. No question about it. But then again, I also think that aside from how he says something or what he says, people need to look at what he's done to try to make this country better. I do think that he really does care for the state of our country and the economy and the health of our people. I do. I believe that. But he says it the wrong way. I do that a lot. I say things on social media that angers people. I'll post a picture of me with a glass of bourbon and all hell breaks loose. Or smoking a cigar and all hell breaks loose. People are like, I'm getting rid of my records. I'm not going to follow you anymore. You're not a real Christian, and they throw away all the good things that I've done or Stryper's done because I smoked a cigar.
You started making music in the 80s, in the early 80s, and all through now. And you've seen the change in how people interact with their favorite artists, whether it's Stryper, whether it's Motley Crue, whoever it is. And now people have the ability to have access to them in terms of commenting on what they do in real time. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's an expert. That in itself, I mean, have had to stop reading the comments section in articles on, whether it's, a news article on like a Chicago Tribune or, an article, because it just feels like it's the end of the world when you start reading that stuff.
Oh, I know.
How has that changed how you do things?
Well, you got to somehow stay level-headed in it all, because if you go online, which I do every day, you're going to read comments that are terrible. People are just, not all people, but a good portion of people are just nasty. And they feel that they have the right to go and say whatever the hell they want to say about anybody. And it's disheartening. It's beyond disheartening. It's just wrong. And, unfortunately we have the technology and the tools to be able to do that. Every single person out there now has a voice. They didn't 30 years ago, including musicians. There was something to be said for the mystique of musicians and actors. And, I used to love, and respect Robert De Niro. Now I can't hardly stand to watch him in a movie. Because the way he comes across to me is just not a good person. He comes across very nasty to me. And, I think that's technology. We all have a voice. We can go tweet whatever we want and put on Instagram whatever we want. And I think it's important for us all, as people that are in the spotlight, it's important for us to be accountable to our fans, to the people that follow us. Do something good, be a light in the dark, be positive, help people out instead of tear them down, bring people together instead of separate people. It's a responsibility, and I think we should all be focusing on that with what we have, the platforms that we have. On when you have 1 million followers on Twitter, that's a big deal, man. Use it wisely.
We hear also a lot too, whenever an actor or whenever a musician, athlete says something, it's the stay in your lane, stick to this, stick to that. And I always push back that, because whether they are a musician, an athlete, or an actor, they still are a member of society. Now, I've always believed that when someone expresses their opinion, it's on you, the person that's hearing it, whether to agree with it or whether to just say, oh, okay, that's his opinion. I'm still going to listen to their music. I'm still going to watch them play baseball or football or whatever.
Right.
I still think, I disagree with everything Ted Nugent says, but I still love Stranglehold. I still love Cat Scratch Fever, and I still, won't stop listening to that. I'm not going to take away the joy I have from his music just because I disagree with everything he says.
Totally.
It's up to me, the individual, to, take meaning in what that person says and decide whether or not I care to listen to it.
No, I get it. And that's a different side of what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about De Niro specifically. Yeah. It's perfectly fine and great to express your opinion and your views. And I think Nugent does it in almost it's almost comical to hear him talk. Like, he makes me laugh when I enjoy watching him talk and hearing him talk, even though I don't agree with a lot of what he does too. I'm not a hunter. I never have been, never will be. He's an avid hunter, but it's just the way he puts his words together and everything. But then there are other people that just don't do it with class. They do it at a whole different level that's really down there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And those are the people, without naming names, I named one, obviously, that just kind of make me say, okay, I kind of lost respect for that person. There's a handful of them. But, I'm all for people expressing their views and their opinions. I do it every day on social media, but I try to do so with respect. I never go into it in a disrespectful manner of saying, yeah, all you other morons out there that don't believe what we believe, you better get your act together. You know what I mean? I never take that approach. That's where I draw the line, and I lose respect for people that have that mentality and that attitude. Like, F you, all you clowns out there that voted for Trump, or, it's just, that's a whole different thing, in my opinion.
Well, there are people that say things for clickbait. They say things on the red carpet because they know it's going to get them views on social media. And there are people that walk the walk and talk the talk. They don't just say words; they actually do things. I mean, I had the pleasure of interviewing George Lynch a couple weeks ago, and he has a lot of opinions too. But here's a man that's been part of protest.
I wouldn't know anything about George Lynch's opinions.
But he's been active in protest. He does a lot of things with the Native Americans. He does walk the walk. So when he says something, there's a little bit of weight behind it. There is weight behind it. And versus someone who just says something for a click and some views.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know this or not, but George was a Christian at one time. Yeah, he was a born again Christian and went door to door and played on the worship team and did that whole thing. I'm not sure. I know a little bit about what made him turn away from that, but I think it's interesting because I guess he considers himself a free thinker / atheist, and I'm a Christian, and we're working together, and we make good music together, and I think we're a good example of how you can work together despite your differences.
I was hoping that we would get to that because that's a great example of two individuals at both ends of the spectrum working together, making great music. I love the Sweet Lynch stuff that you guys have done. I hope that there's more, but yes, that's a great example. Yeah.
Well, the thing we couldn't overcome, two things, was the budget. The budgets keep coming down, and the way I like to do things, I don't like to compromise the quality. And if I feel we're starting to do that too much, I'll bow out. I'd rather not do a project if we're going to go into it with a $30,000 budget and, have to get this guy on drums and that guy on bass, and we can't do it the right way. But it looks like we're going to be moving forward on another Sweet Lynch album and get it done next year, or probably February, March, April of next year. I think we start on it, and it's going to be awesome. We're gonna make another one. It's going to be done a little different from the first two in terms of players and the way it's put together, but it's going to be a great album, and we're both really excited about it. I love working with George. He's one of my favorite players. Always has been, and it's always a thrill to be able to work with him.
As we close here, what is the future, or does Stryper have a plan for when things open up and begin once again?
We do. I mean, right now we've got the record that's out. We're doing virtual meet and greets, virtual listening parties, and then also virtual breaking down the song, where we take people into the studio. We're going to be doing a lot of that stuff over the next 3 to 4, 5, 6 months. And then I've got a number of projects I'm wrapping up. One with Tracy Gunn's vocals. I'm doing Sunbomb. Started on a new album with Joel Oakstra and Nathan James on Frontiers after the start of the year. And then we're going to jump right into a Sweet Lynch album. And then Stryper's going to tour. We're going to tour. We're going to Australia. We've got some U.S. dates on the books next year. Now, that could change. We'll have to see what happens with this pandemic. And if things escalate again and take off, then obviously it's going to change everybody's world and plans. So we'll see what happens. But, I mean, you're never going to stop music. You're never going to stop Stryper. I mean, we're going to keep moving forward and doing what we do and what we love to do. And there's a lot left in us, and I think the best is yet to come. I really do.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you doing this. I still remember my brother bringing home Soldiers Under Command and just being so immersed in that record when I was a kid. This is a great treat for me, and I appreciate you doing it.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. God bless you. Hope you enjoy the album, and we'll see you soon out there on the road, I hope.
Well, thanks again, Michael. Once again, this is Jay Scott. This is the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. We'll talk again soon. Thank you. Okay, brother. Take care. God bless.
crazy friend.